Welcome back, guys. So, following on from where we left off last time, all the painting's being done. Done a bit of detail painting on the cockpit. So it's ready to go. The decals have gone down on the instrument panel, absolutely beautiful. Really laid down, conform to all the contours, no silvering whatsoever, so I'm really quite happy how they've done. And done a little bit of detail painting on the aft radios. That's purely just to liven that area up a little bit. So if we're looking at the instructions then, we are at the point where, so we've got all this done here, and we've done all this, that's done. So we're actually ready at the point where we can think about joining the fuselage halves together. So let's just free the instrument panel up off its sprue. And that goes in the side console. So what we need to do is get the main console in first, and then we can put the instrument panel in. Now, if you really want to detail this aircraft up, what you can do, if you look at the back of the instrument panel, you can see the back of the instruments. We could drill them and put some lead wire in to replicate the cable or command, or like sensor wires. Well, it'll be pressure cables and hydraulic lines if it's fuel pressures and stuff, or oil pressures and stuff. But you could do that, and you'd be able to see it. But I'm quite happy in this instance just to do an out-of-the-box build. Right, so we got the pilot station glued to this part. I did that off camera, and it just clipped together just beautifully. And we get this part snugged tight into the wing. Good to go. Next thing is the instrument panel. We'll just try a dry test fit just to see how it goes. So we locate into the side. Yeah, I figured that was going to happen. Let me just check to see. You can actually zoom in a little bit. There you go. So get a better pair of tweezers. So you can see the hole there, and then the panel will sit and rest on here. Made sure that the pedals are in their holes there, so it's all in the right locating points. So just try and get that into their locating point. That's it. So it's not too bad. And we'll come in with some quick set, touch and float. I want to touch in just here where the pedals join the side of the fuselage. It's because we don't want any of this coming loose once we've glued the whole lot together. We want it to bond nicely. Same again, we just want to touch and flow here. It's a bit tricky to get to. I want to be careful we don't touch anywhere else, because this glue is very hot, so it will dissolve paint. So at all costs, try and keep your fingers away from the parts. There we go. Right, so that's the first bit in. Look at that. That's looking rather nice. Nice little bits of colour in there. So we've got this piece in here, and we've got the seat in the side there. So we are ready to bring it together. I am just going to do a simple test fit to start. I'll zoom out a little bit, and we can get the whole fuselage out in. There we go. So I'm going to do a test fit just to make sure. So that all fits really nicely. We go turn it over. We've got nice mating surfaces here, and with a bit of pressure we're going to get this all brought together and glued up at the front. So quite happy that it's going to go. So we'll just again gently remove the right hand fuselage side. The other thing I've done just to help the glue adhere is I've just taken a sanding board and just gently burnished away any paint on the joint-in surface. Right, what we need to do now to get this thing together is turn to our trusty old Revell contactor. Oh yeah, and there's the rear gun turret. So we'll go on the side that has the female locating holes to the male locating pins. What we want is just a normal quantity of glue. Right, no glue coming out. Well, the way to cure that is just to get a lighter and just, there we go, and it will just there. So you'll just burn off any dry glue in the application needle, and that will then get us a clean flow of glue. Don't do it over the model, purely because if there is glue in the needle, it may expand and dribble, and the last thing we want to do is dribble glue over our model that we've worked so hard to get together. Right, so now that we've got the glue flowing, just set it on. Don't squeeze the tube, just let the glue come out of its own accord. There we go. Once it starts coming out, you just want to run a consistent bead along the jointing surfaces. Just remembering any surfaces where the internals are going to join into the fuselage halves. Right, when we're confident we've got all the surfaces that need glue, we can then bring the fuselage halves together. There we go. So gentle push just to make sure we've got contact and alignment. And now we need to think about clamping maybe, or taping. What we can also do, that's what I like to do, just to help that glue get into all the nooks and crannies and give it an extra bit of bondability, if that's a word. So we'll just come in with some Tamiya extra thin and rub it down over the joint, and that will, or should I say my experience has found that it will help the Revell contactor set up, but it also makes sure that we don't have any areas of the joint that's towards the surface that are missing glue. And we end up with hollow points in the jointed surface. The good thing about Tamiya extra thin aid in the Revel contactor is that it can help just dissolve any painted surfaces that are mating that we haven't managed to clean the glue away from. Right, we need to get this frontal portion done. I'm going to put a drop of glue in the front of the Bombay. You can see it's slightly off on this side, so we're going to need to encourage that together. And run glue down the joint. I'm possibly going to need a clamp in here. A little bit of Tamiya extra thin does not hurt, just to aid these fuselage halves coming together and bonding with the Bombay. Again, you don't want to put too much on because we really don't want to dissolve any of the paint that we've worked so hard to get in. Right, let me find a clamp. Here we go. Clamp coming up. Good old F clamps. Actually going to clamp it this way on. Definitely going to need it because you can see the joint is opening up. And put the F clamp together. Just make sure it's squared up to the model. Nip it together, and there we go. Good, strong clamp surface. The rest of the joints seem to have gone together reasonably well. What we can do if we want, you could touch in a little liquid cement along this joint, top joint here, but I don't think we need to do that. I think we'll be alright. Okay, we'll set that aside. And then I'm going to get the fuselage top panels off the sprue because we need to think about painting them and weathering them just to blend in with the rest of it. And then we'll move on to the wheel wells and engines. So, see you back in a moment. Okay, so fuselage is nicely gluing together. What I've quickly done is quickly just painted the upper fuselage parts. I've already popped in the rear gunner placement. Fits really rather nicely. Zoom out a little. Oh, too much. Yep, so we've got the gun emplacement in. Next to put in is the hatch. Be mindful that the hatch goes that way around, and that is a beautiful sound as that just clicks in. And all we need to do is just touch in the corner. Some quick setting cement. And then we pop on the roof of the cab. And that just fits perfectly there. And we can just touch and float glue. There we go. And then just a gentle push into place. Don't over squeeze it. We really don't want loads of bubbling plastic to come out. All we want is a good firm joint. Make sure you stare down the aeroplane so you can ensure that the fuselage piece is sitting correctly in relation to the rest of the fuselage. No steps, no bulges. Now's the time to get rid of all those. What we can do is we can put a little bit of tape on just to help hold it in place. So we'll get some 6mm Tamiya tape. Get that in place. Just a general check, just run your fingers over the joint. Excellent. So, what next? Well, we've got the engines to build up. So here's one I've already built up, just to see how they go together. And then we've also got the wheel wells to build up. Again, I've built the left-hand side just so I can see how it goes together, and it does. He says it's not glued itself together yet. I hope not, because we've got to paint it. It's a very tight fit. Should come out from the front. Yeah, there we go. And then pop out from the back. Yeah, so the wheel well assembly is in one piece. So we've got those two parts to do. There's a couple of bombs to do, and the other thing we've got to do is the tail assembly and such like that. So I'm going to just pause the video here a minute. We'll probably get the stuff, the tail assembly ready first, and then we'll dive into how we put the engines all together, get them constructed. That might be a natural break then, before we come back and look at detail painting and sort of final overall construction before we look at actually getting some paint on the exterior of the aircraft. So back in a moment. Right, we're back, and you can see from the instructions we're looking at the tail assemblies. So the horizontal stabilizers and the vertical tail fin. Now I have to say, I really am enjoying the detail that Airfix have included in these parts. They're really, really nicely detailed, nicely in scale, and we've got solid single piece control surfaces, and then two halves for the stabilizers themselves. Simple locating pins. They go together really nicely, and as they go together they encapsulate the control surface, so makes it movable. Just what you want, I hear you say. Again, I've cleaned these parts off camera just using the technique I always use. Flush cut the sprue with the sprue cutters, and then trim up any excess with the scalpel blade, and if needed, a little bit of sanding. Airfix plastic is a little softer than most, so it cleans up very, very easily. Being careful with the glue. I don't want just to bind up this part just yet, although I will look to get these parts set in a slightly offset pose, but we'll need to do that when we've got both of them together and on the fuselage. So parts together, Revell contactor, make sure they're lined up. Give them a pretty pinch on the edge, make sure they're fully joined. If there's anywhere that needs a little bit of help with the gluing, just come in with a little bit of extra thin over the edge, and that'll help. get to any gaps that the Revell contactor has left. Let's just do a test fit. That fits really rather nicely in there. So just make sure we get that. That's lovely, positive fit. Really, really nice. So same for this side. A little blow off just to get rid of any excess swarf or shavings. And again, the Revell contracted glue, absolutely fantastic, very precise, and the more you use it the better, the more efficient you get at putting it on. Good, strong, quick bonding glue. Airfix plastic seems to really, really like it. So drop the parts together, squeeze, get those bonded surfaces together. Squeeze the leading edge round to the tip of the surface. We've still got movement, which is good. Not glued any of these surfaces up yet. Right, and then we'll just do the same as we did on the other side. We'll just pop this home. There we go, fits perfect. And we can eyeball in relation to the vertical stabilizer, and we can see we've got a nice 90-degree fit there. And then we've got that on, and then this part just sits on here like so, and we can put a little bit of deflection in if we choose so. Just a tiny bit, something like that, maybe, not much. Looks like it's had a bit of right rudder before it's come to a stop. Need just to take a blade and just scrape off any excess. Try again. Perfect fit. There is no locating pins for the tail, but there is a nice recess here, and it fits really rather nice. There's also options here to put in the control lines to the tail. Probably do that once we finish painting. So that's the tail surfaces. The other bits we've got to put in are these fillets, and they just sit in here like so. I don't think it really is requiring for us to have the wings in place to get these in situ. They just need to marry up with this trailing edge here. What we can do is we've got this one taped up, we can just knock off the clamp, trial fit this wing, just so we see, and you can see there that putting this in now before the wings doesn't make absolutely no difference to the wings. And then we have the flaps to put on. So we'll not bother with contactor, we'll just come straight in with Tamiya extra thin quick set. So again, we're just going to line that up. And make sure that the two top surfaces marry up. And we can even come in here with a little bit of glue and just run that in there. And that puts that fillet in there. Just do Mk1 eyeball, run it down the side, just so we're happy that it's sitting in the same orientation as the rest of the wing fillet. Same with this side. This side we've got to be cognizant that there is the relief for the access stairs or steps. If needed, just to trim everything up, we can come in with our file here and just there is a little bit of an ejector pin on the back here. Just there. But you run the file over it. Go for a second test fit. It's still there. Okay, it's just offering not to go in. There's a couple of ejector pins here. I think we'll just come with a blade and just gently trim those away. That's there and here. Try it again. There we go. That's all it needed. So, time your extra thin. And the side, touch and flow, and then just along here. Same as before. Push it into the aircraft and bring it level with this top edge to avoid any unsightly joints. Again, just use your eye, cast your eye down over the surfaces to make sure we're happy with the orientation of everything. Right, so that is the tail. Quite happy now that the glues have pretty well cured up on the front. This joint's closed up. I am going to leave the clamp on it just for another half an hour or so because I want to make sure 100% that is dried up and good to go. So the next thing to do is, if we turn over the instructions, we're looking at the engine. So we're going to end up with this and this, following these steps here. So what I'll do is I'll get all the parts off the sprues and we'll lay them out on the instructions like we've done before, and then we'll just go through step by step putting the engine together. So back shortly. Right, we're back and we've gotten all the parts off the sprue. Now I haven't actually cleaned all the parts up, so I thought I might show you how I do it with some of these more intricate parts. So first off, we've got a part like this, quite easy to clean up. Just get the scalpel in and then just gently letting the blade do the work, scrape away any sprue attachment points that are left. And the thing to remember with these scalpel blades are they're very sharp, so you don't need to put much pressure on. Just let the blade do the work and it will clean up the part, no bother at all. You can also scrape clean with scalpel blades. Sharp, they're also quite firm, well hard metal, so they'll scrape clean, no bother at all. Now if we look at this part here, there you can see the mold fill points. So these are hollows that are designed for the plastic to flow through into here and make sure that you don't get a short shot on any of these parts. But if you notice here, there's a little of a concaved top edge here, and we need to get all those cleaned up. This is where single edge cutters come in handy. You just want to come in with the fine of the point and just right down deep into the concave, and the more you can get off with the single edge cutters, the less you have to clean. Some will cut away a little easier than others because some are finer than others, but what we can do is then come back in, if you want, with the cutters and try again with the point of the cutter, or what I was doing with the last one is come in with a scalpel blade and then just gently holding the part firmly. That's it, just trim that part out, and remember, there you go, remember to twist the blade as you cut. Show it sideways on, you twist the blade as you cut, and that helps you follow the profile of the concaved part. And you can always gently go the opposite way just to clear off any burring. You can give it a little scrape as well. So it's not too difficult, but it takes a little practice to get used to manipulating the scalpel. Realistically, when the engine's all in together, you're not going to see any of these parts. So if you don't do a 100% job, it's not going to be a problem. However, if you're like me, point of pride, we clear up everything and we know it is spot on the way it should be. And you'll find that was probably one of the hardest parts to clean up over the engine. Right, we've got the, these are the push rods possibly. Again, just hold on to the part with the scalpel, gently pare away any of the connecting points. Here's one we've left on. Be mindful there is actually a small connecting or locating part there. You can see that now that I've cut it off. Try not to cut that off because you do need that, I think. Ask me how I know, because I cut it off on the last engine I built. Right, that's that part clean. This part came off very nicely. A little bit of flash here and there, nothing deadly. And we've got the reduction gearbox goes clean. This is the outer for the exhaust collector ring. Again, we're just using our single edge cutters to get in, trim that part as close to the part as we can, and then we come in with a scalpel after and just trim. When you're trimming, just remember you need to go both ways, and that's just the natural way the blade works. If you go both ways, then you're going to catch both starting edges of the part. We can come back in with a fine right, and then we've got this part we need to clean up. Again, if you've got a sharp scalpel, you can just clean that part up straight away. If not, then single edge cutters will do it for you, and you just need to clean up the remnants of the sprue connection point. Engine cowling, try to be careful here, there's a bit of detail on the outside of it, so we just want to use a scalpel, mark in where the edge of that panel is, and then cut up to it. Scrape clean. Other side, simple cut and scrape. That's that part done. Exhausts, just need to clean up the tips. There we go. A little connection point there. And we're just going to scrape down the exhaust just to get rid of any burring. Both sides. where the mould lines are. And just remember, when I'm using this scalpel, I've been doing it for years, so you can see I'm cutting towards my thumb. I know how much pressure I need to put on that scalpel to achieve the cut I need, and I'm confident that I'm not going to cut myself. I have cut myself many times, I think, as every modeler has, but just be mindful that, especially if you're a younger modeler just getting into the hobby, don't cut towards yourself, especially with scalpel blades. They are surgical blades, very sharp. If they cut you, they will cut you quickly and very deeply, and you'll bleed. So please don't do as I do. Do as I say, and just watch how you work with them. Try and avoid cutting towards yourself. Where possible, cut away or cut onto a proper cutting mat. And when you've practiced enough and you know and you can gauge how much pressure you need to put on to achieve a cut, then you'll be able to effectively clean up parts. And the other risk of using a scalpel to clean up parts is you may actually inadvertently cut the part and damage it. So again, good practice is to use sanding sticks or files. Get used to the way the tools work, and then if you want to clean the way I clean, you can do that to your heart's content, but just be careful. Don't want to be responsible for people injuring themselves. I've done enough of that myself. Right, there we go. There's all the parts cleaned up. Doesn't take long. That's real time. So what, 5-10 minutes, and that's however many steps done. Right, so let's get on and do some building. Notice the hole pattern here. My scalpel to point. So you've got 1, 2, 3 holes, and you've got 2 slits. So if we look at the orientation of the part here, you've got 1, 2, and 3. So it's 1, 2, 3. That's the orientation, and there's the 2 slits, and there they are there. So this part will go any which way. It's not fussy. And we have 2 options here. We can either glue it with a Revell contactor, or we'll do what I'm going to do, and we're just going to use Tamiya Extra Thin. Touch it in just around the cylinder heads. There we go. Plenty of glue. Gentle press just to make sure the part's home. Next one here, push rods. Again, it goes the front way that way. Notice the orientation of the holes. So 1 up high, 2 down low. So we do the same here. And then you'll notice the corresponding locating pins there. So just line them up. Making sure we get them in the right location, otherwise the part won't go together at all. And there we go. And that's how that should fit, nice and neat. So come back in with the Tamiya Extra Thin. You want to put an ample amount around the center boss. Remember, this stuff's got fantastic capillary action, so it will work its way around. Press, hold. Right, so center gearbox. Again, this will only go one way, but we're actually rotating the engine now through about 180 degrees. No, I tell a fib. Turn this through 180 degrees, and that pops on there like so. Tally extra thin, press and hold. Guess what I've done? I forgot to put the propeller boss in. Thankfully the glue has only just gone on, so we've got plenty of time just to take that off, pop that in, and then reattach it. There we go. Just get a pair of tweezers. We'll just pull that part off and check that it still rotates, which it does. So if you want a rotating propeller, that's what you've got to do. Make sure that part is free. In all honesty, I shan't be caring about that. I'll probably end up gluing my propellers on. Right, and we turn the engine around. This will be the air intake, I believe. Seems the exhaust vents to the front. This will only go one way. Always test fit anyway. Nice fit. Again, Tamiya extra thin. We just lay it in that recess. Put ample glue in. We want a strong joint. Put a drop in the middle there. Like so. Lift the part over. There we go. Now you want to line the part up neatly with the cylinder heads and press the center. Make sure you get a good bond. If you think you need a bit more glue, I'll pop that in the bonding surface, and you can just pop it on a couple of cylinder heads around the engine just to make sure that we've got good contact points that are all nicely glued up. Okay, and that's as far as we go with the engine at this time. Now I'm going to jump ahead to part 70, and we're just going to pop the exhausts in place, and I'm purely doing that so I don't get them muddled up. So they go in, lock in like so, and then we just come in with some extra thin. Get that surface, jointing surface bonded together. Be careful, these are fragile parts. You don't want to twist, warp, or any otherwise misalign this part. It is quite crucial when you think of the engine cowling and retaining the correct profile around the exterior of the engine. So there's the exhaust on. We can leave that part. The next thing we've got to do is we've got to sort out the engine exhaust collector. This will only go one way. You'll notice those two marks there and there, and there's corresponding marks there and there. They adjoin nicely like that. Again, Tamiya extra thin, touch and flow around the joint. We will need to go the whole way around this now, purely because we want to put a decent amount of glue on. We don't have doing what we've just done there and see it drop off and land everywhere. We want to get some adhesion in place the whole way around the collecting collar. I'm not sure what Bristol engine this was, but I know it probably went on to be a forerunner, the Bristol Hercules, that powered the Beaufighters. Very capable engine, aircraft and air crews. So right, just have a quick eyeball, make sure everything's sitting level. We're all happy. Then the next thing to do, they say, is to glue these together, but we're not going to do that because we've got to paint this first. So how does this go? So that one to the top, that one there, and that one there. That's how the engine lives in relation to the front collar, and then we need to come in and think about the lower engine cowling. So this will only fit in one place. You can see there it fits here and here, and that's taken the exhaust gases away from the collection ring out the fishtail exhausts. So we need to glue that on, make sure we're happy that it is properly glued. And anywhere we think the joint hasn't had enough glue, we can always come back in with a little bit more quick drying. Now we've got the position there, we don't need the engine. We can come in with our rest of our cylinder head covers and we can just pop them in. I have to do a bit of pre-glue in here and then just set them down. And the big trick here is to take our time and make sure that all the panels are in the correct orientation to one another. We don't want to rush this and end up mucking up the panels. We don't want to end up having a wonky engine cowling. There we go. And then this one here. And these only go one way. You'll notice you've got these little bulges here. That was for the top of the cylinder heads. So they will only go one way. So again, touch and flow with a quick set and cement. Don't put any pressure on these because we don't want a massive blob of liquefied plastic coming out of these. We just want them to glue. A little blow, evaporate excess glue, and pinch those two panels together. Being very careful not to touch anywhere where there's wet glue, otherwise we're going to end up with massive fingerprints everywhere. And that's the engine cowling done. So we've got the engine, we have the cowling, okay, there's the engine inset cowling, and then we have the louvered vents to the rear. That is an engine built. There are two air scoops to go in, which I'll get cut off the sprue and put in just a moment, and then we'll turn the page and look at the undercarriage. So, back in a moment.